Hey everybody, it's Leanne. Welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be making some Nordic runes from polymer clay. And these are the little runes here. Really simple to make, such an easy design, but I think they look absolutely awesome. They look kind of rustic and they feel nice when you hold them in your hands. You can make these into pendants, you can just use them as pocket charms, or you can make a whole set like I did and actually use them for rune work. So you're going to need some polymer clay in any colour, it doesn't really matter. You can use black, which you'll cut down a step painting later, a cutter, the shape that you want your runes to be. I prefer to use a piece of glass to work with my polymer clay, it just makes it a lot easier. And some stamps, texture stamps. Doesn't matter if they're foam stamps or rubber stamps, they just have to be strong enough to be able to embed into your clay, and you need two of these, one for the back and one for the front. Just showing you all the different ones I have that I sometimes use. Okay, so you're going to take a piece of your polymer clay. It doesn't really matter what size, because we're going to use a little trick here to make all our runes the same size. You're going to get it nice and warm, pull it out and put it on your piece of glass. Now I'm just using a clay roller here, which is an acrylic roller, but any roller will work. And I'm taking two thick nail files as my measuring sticks, and this is just so that my clay is nice and even and I can roll it out to a nice thickness, and when I'm doing a whole set of them, this will ensure every single one is the same thickness. Now once you've got your piece of clay rolled out, you're going to lift it off of your glass sheet. As you can see, it's a nice thickness. You don't want it too thin, you want it about the thickness of a nail file. You're going to pick a stamp for your back and a stamp for your front. You're going to lay your piece of clay between the two, and you're going to apply some pressure. You need a decent amount of pressure to get the embed nice and deep, but you don't want to squeeze it so hard you make your clay really thin. So just be mindful of that. Give it some pressure and then peel off your piece of clay. As you can see, front and back has a nice impression. So you take your cutter and you decide where on your piece of clay you want to make your rune. Cut that out. So you can see that gives you your nice perfect little shape here with lovely texture on both sides. I mean, you could use the same stamp on both sides if you have two of the same stamp. And we're going to take a bit of that clay and you're going to roll yourself out a long snake of clay. And you're going to make it quite thin. I would say probably about 4mm thick is what I ended up with. You just want a nice long even piece because you're going to actually make your rune symbol on the top of your clay with this piece. Okay, so for the symbol we are probably going to make this one here. Just showing you how these look finished again. I just love how they turn out. Now I actually have a printout of a rune sheet that I go by when I'm making runes, because I make runes and things quite often. So this is the printout I have. It actually came from my old grimoire, and it just shows you the meaning of all the runes. This is how many runes are in the Nordic rune alphabet. There are also witch runes. There are many different types of runes that you can make your own set of, but we're going to go with this one. And this one most commonly for me is the light within. And first of all, I'm just going to make a long piece for the middle. When you're looking at your design, just look at which part of the design has a long straight piece first and start with that as sort of your base piece. You don't have to worry too much about making this really neat right now. You just want it in the right place, centralized, so that it's going to be a nice place when you come to actually finalizing the details. And you're going to add just little pieces of short snakes of clay until you have the design of your rune on the top of your rune. See, I'm not being neat, I'm not trying to smooth any of the edges, I'm just laying out the design for right now. I'm not even really pressing it down onto the clay overly hard. You want it to be quite puffy and 3D on the top of your clay. So once you've got your design laid out, you want to take yourself a ball tool or a dotting tool. These are nail dotting tools, And you want to go for quite a small one, and you're just going to start smoothing together the details. Just all those joins, smooth them into one another. You don't have to be great because these are rustic, so any sort of little discrepancies are just going to add to how this looks. And when I put these rolls of clay on top of my base, I did press them down a tiny little bit so they are adhered enough to the clay. And as you're doing this, it will push down the clay a little bit as well. So once you've got that, you're going to take your blade and just straighten up some of those edges just to make them nice and even. Just push your design around until you're happy with it. Then you're going to take one of your stamps, I like this one, and you're going to lightly press it on top to add texture just to the very surface of that letter, so that when you come to painting it later it will have some texture in. And I'm just going to make 2 indentations for my crystals here. Now the crystals I use are actually glass crystals. I got these on eBay. I have them in lots of colours, but these ones here are just the AB white crystals. I've got them in multiple sizes, and these are great for polymer clay because they can go in the oven and they don't melt and they don't crack, and they're absolutely great for this. You don't need to put crystals in your runes, I just think it adds that extra detail. So I lay them in place and then push them down with my ball tool. And once you've got your design finalised, being careful not to press too hard because you don't want to disrupt to the texture on the back of your rune. Just give it a little check over, make sure you're happy with it. And you're going to put that in the oven per the instructions of your polymer clay brand that you use. This is Sculpey, I think. So between 20 to 30 minutes in a really low heated oven. It comes out looking like this. And now we're going to move on to painting it black. Now if you use black clay in the beginning, you will need to just ignore this step, but this is a great thing to make with scrap clay because it doesn't really matter what colour you start with. And you're just going to get the paint on really thin and get it into all those crevices with a paintbrush. I find dabbing like this really gets it into every nook and cranny, and then just smoothing out the surface once you've dabbed it all in, getting rid of any excess. You might have to give your clay a couple of coats if your black acrylic paint is not very opaque, but this one that I use, I just do 1 coat. It seems to work out just fine. So you're going to do the front, the sides and the back completely black, as you can see me doing here. I tend to do the front, wait on it drying a little bit before I do the back and the sides, so that I have somewhere to put my fingers without getting completely covered in paint. And the same with the back, you just want to work it into the crevices. Now when that is completely dry, as you can see it is here, you're going to pick your colour of metallic. This one is the Pearl Copper Gold from Arteza. I have all of their metallic acrylic paints and they're absolutely great for this. They're really bright. You can get away with doing this without having to layer up the coats. So you need just the tiniest little amount, and you're going to use the flat of your finger for this. You're just going to take a tiny amount of paint, rub it on your palette or your glass and just start dabbing. Now dabbing is the best technique because it will only get the very top of your texture. It won't get into any of the grooves as long as you keep your paint nice and thin on your finger. And if you work your way around, it doesn't go in against the edge of the alphabet letter, which actually makes it stand out. And it's a great way of just applying your metallic. Now with this method, because the heat of your finger is and the thinness of the paint, it dries really fast, which means you can go over your little piece a few times in the same few minutes and build up the colours to get it as bright as you like it. As you can see, the Arteza Gold is really great at going on really bright even with 1 coat. I do tend to go over it a couple of times in places just to make it a bit brighter, and you leave that to dry. Now once it's dry, you're going to take a varnish gloss. This is an acrylic gloss which I use with my clay all the time. I mean, you can use your Sculpey varnish or whatever gloss you use for your polymer clay, and you're going to give your little rune I've just shown you I've decanted it into a smaller tub, which is easier to work with. You're going to give your rune a gloss coat front and back to seal all your paint. Now don't worry about your crystals right now, you're just going to varnish over everything. Just get it into all those nooks and crannies and put it on quite thin. It's better to do really thin coats and let it dry and then layer your coats than do one massively thick coat, which may never dry properly. Coat all your edges and the back in the same manner once the front is dry, and do this as many times, as many layers as you want to get whatever kind of shine. I only do it a couple of times to get it sort of a satin sheen rather than a really glossy sheen. And then last but not least, you're going to scrape that paint off of your glass crystals, which will come off really easy because they are glass. Just be pretty delicate when you're doing this though, because if you scrape too much you can actually damage the AB coating that's on these. As you can see, it comes off really easily, and when I've done thicker layers of varnish, I find if I actually go around the edge of the crystal first with the edge of my knife in a circle, the whole thing comes off the top of the crystal in one layer like it's wearing a little cap. But in this video I just scraped it off because it was quite thin. And as you can see, that is the finished rune, and it can be added to my collection of runes that I already have here. I used a different stamp for the texture this time on the front of my rune, but as you can see it's still pretty cool no matter what texture you use. It just makes it look so organic. Okay, so thanks for watching my video. Don't forget to follow me, comment and leave a like. It really helps me with my channel if you do those things, and I will catch you in the next video. If you've got any suggestions on anything you'd like to see, leave them below. Bye.